who are you? Who is Ivanka?
I was born in Czechoslovakia. I lived there for 24 years. Then I immigrated to Canada. So for the past 30 years, I've been living in Montreal. Under the communist regime, you're not allowed to travel. We were allowed to travel east, Russia, Bulgaria, Romania, Poland.
Hello and
Yeah.
namaste, Ivanka.
Hello.
Welcome to the show Travel Stories by Patient Wanderer. And hope you are doing very good. And in this show, what we do is we tell your stories through our eyes. Uh, and straight away, so how are you doing today?
Very good, very excited.
That's great. That's great. So the thing that I want to ask you, the first thing is, who are you? Who is Ivanka? And where were you born? You brought up. Where do you work right now? Just a little bit of your introduction and background, please.
Mm. I was born in Czechoslovakia. I lived there for 24 years. Then I immigrated to Canada. So for the past 30 years, I've been living in Montreal. I work for United Nations in aviation. So travel, it's a little bit related to my job, even though I work in aviation safety, which is not related to traveling itself to
Mhm.
me, but it's a great employer and a great place to work.
So, did you start your aviation career back in Czechoslovakia, or did you start while coming to Canada?
Not really. As an immigrant to a new country, my diploma was not recognized. I studied civil engineering in Slovakia,
Uh-huh.
but I
Okay.
never got into it in Canada. So I took some computer classes.
Right.
Then I worked in a hotel. My first job in Canada was at the Ritz-Carlton in Montreal. So that is
Nice.
related to my travels. And then I worked for Air Canada, which also is related. So I
Yeah.
was going higher and higher. So now I'm in a good place, enjoying my job.
So you always been like Air Canada, then aviation, so it's more or less related. But did you study something in Canada, or did you study just
Uh,
civil engineering as a degree course and then came to
no,
Canada
I
and did
don't have a
certain things?
degree in civil aviation, but I never pursued it in Canada because I would have had to start from the beginning, and then I had children and other. I came as a refugee, so we had a
Right,
survival
family commitments as well.
problems. Not really going to work to travel or to go to school right away, because in Quebec you have to speak French and English, so that's difficult obstacle right away. So it takes years to perfect the language and go to school. Yeah, I took some um, computer programs
Mhm.
courses, but nothing related to my field.
Well, both there you are living a nice life, I believe, and you said that you live quite close to the downtown area. That's a great thing to live around, I believe. Are you comfortable sharing your rough journey or your not the income, but are you comfortably living in these days in Montreal, like, or was it more comfortable in Czechoslovakia when you were back there?
Well, living there before the revolution, 1989,
Hmm.
it was difficult because under the communist regime, you're not allowed to travel. We were allowed to travel east, Russia, Bulgaria, Romania, Poland,
Hmm.
um, but not west, no Germany, no Italy, or anything even further. So now that I live in Canada, the door opened. So that was one of the reasons why I immigrated, because, travel is my passion and I was not allowed to go far. Like you can go to these few limited countries for,
Yeah,
a few times, but, the world is big and you want to explore as much as you can.
true.
So I like this was before Facebook. I had a big white paper on the wall in my room, and it said Paris, New York, Japan. No, Paris,
Yeah.
New York, Tokyo. Okay. So my friends, they came, somebody wrote a message, somebody drew a picture. So this was Facebook, my Facebook in 1988.
Do you
Okay.
have a picture of that, by the way?
No, I don't.
No, in those old
So
days, I think less
yeah, but
technology was there.
I realized after years of, after creation of Facebook, I realized I had my own Facebook on the wall. Anyway,
Yeah,
and at that time, because the border was closed, it was it was not very realistic for me to visit these places, but one can dream, right?
true.
So when I came to Canada, the borders opened for me. So I did my Paris, I did my New York a few times, and I'm going to Tokyo in September. So
That's fantastic. Ticking off all
dreams
the
do
bucket
come
list.
true. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, I'm
true.
very excited about it.
But now
So
you are perfectly like a settled person in Canada, like all facilities, and you can travel
eh,
and
yes, yes. So I have two great passports. That
all
helps.
right.
I have a European passport and I have Canadian passport. So we don't need a visa for many countries. So sometimes,
Yeah.
cheap airplane tickets pops up.
Hmm.
So I buy it and I go, because I'm single, like I don't have to ask anybody.
That's nice.
So I just go, and on the way you make friends. So sometimes you stay with your friends, sometimes you take a hotel, because the accommodation is a big part of the expense.
True.
So if you can make friends and they let you crash on your couch, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And
I completely agree. Just related to that part, I would like to ask you, how would you define travel? You have given me a good sense about your traveling. So, how would you define travel, and what does it mean to you? What inspires you to travel? Like, I know you were in Slovakia before, and that made you like you always wanted to travel. You had your own Facebook, but what still inspires you to travel? And would you like to travel like next 10 years, 20 years, or whatever life is? You want to travel all the time. What is your inspiration about it?
maybe because of the deprivation, if they tell you you cannot do one thing, I think you wanna do it. So that was the beginning. Um, I believe that when you travel, your world and your mind open. Like the world becomes smaller. At the beginning, like, oh my God, I'm going to Canada. It's the end of the world. Like it was such a big thing. But now I'm going to Japan. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Japan. And not a big deal. Like the world becomes smaller. It's not a big deal anymore.
True.
What inspires me, I've always been curious about how other people live, their culture, because we're all the same, yet so different, the cultural differences. So now, because I always do a big research before my trip. So even though September is still far, I'm researching about Japan, and it cannot get any different, more different than a Japanese culture. They have
True.
so many unwritten rules. They're so polite. They're so disciplined. Like the Western world is not like
You
that.
go and crash. Yeah, yeah, I understand
Yes.
that part of the Western world
Yes,
side.
and you want to blend in. Even though I look like a tourist, probably in most of the countries, but you want to blend in. You don't want to be disrespectful to their culture. Like they don't speak on the train, so you don't want to go like us and start talking on the phone, let's say. They don't have trash cans, on the street, so you have to bring your own bag and carry it until you get back to the hotel. So things
Yeah.
like this, and it's a part of the journey, the research, either on YouTube, um, articles. I'm privileged to work in UN with people from all over the world. So when I travel, I go to the source. I go to the people who live there. So I
True.
print a map of the country,
Yeah, it's always good
and
to
I'm like,
interact with local people. I think that's the best thing that you can learn from your travel experience, to mix in with the culture, blend in with the
yes.
people, and just so moving on to the next one is like, how many countries have you traveled? And yeah, how many countries have you traveled?
Not as many as I would like to, because as I said, I had, babies,
Yeah.
children. So the children, it's more, let's go on the beach to Florida. And I've been to many places several times. So I have
Mhm.
like 30 something, the
That's
countdown. But as a solo traveler, I started only 3 years ago. I was supposed to go with a colleague of mine to New Zealand, and
mhm.
4 days before the departure, he bailed on me. He
Uh-huh.
said, I'm not going. So even though I'm an experienced traveler and it's always me doing the research, doing the planning, it was like a mini shock, like, oh my God, because he was supposed to drive. I don't drive on the left side.
Right, okay.
He had some friends there. We were gonna stay with them. So I put all my worries, on him because he had been there before.
Yeah.
He knew where we're going. The friends are gonna help. And 4 days before, and it was a high season, it was January, which is, it's the opposite weather there. So it was
Mhm.
summer there. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? So I had to book everything. Instead of driving, I had to fly. So,
Yeah.
but that was my best vacation ever. You know?
All right. I think the first time is the tough, but once you start doing a solo travel, the experience takes you like way beyond what you have thought. Like, all right, solo travel is a thing, and you can do it in the future.
I would
Right.
have never planned to go to New Zealand alone. There
So,
is this feeling, what if? What if
yeah,
something
yeah.
happens? Like nobody knows where I am. Nobody's
Sometimes,
gonna miss me.
yeah, sometimes you
Uh,
find treasures. Well, it's not planned, it's unplanned at all. Like, you just find something nice when you don't plan. That is what happened to you, I think. Um, So how much do you spend on travel annually?
How much do I spend for travel? What?
Generally, like in a year, what is your budget? Like, I will spend this
Oh,
much.
my
Like
budget.
some people plan 3 trips, 4 trips, depending how much they want to spend in a year on the travel. Is there anything you want to share about that?
Well, there are cheap countries and there are expensive countries.
Well, yes.
Um, so
On an average,
uh,
like generally, how much would you spend?
if I go, so usually I go in the winter in Canada. So because the winter is like 6 months here. So
Oh
I try
yeah,
to go
definitely.
south and I try to go during Christmas when we have holidays. So it gives
Mhm.
me another extra week. So I go for 1 month, 2 months if I can. So
Right,
it's a different budget when you go for a week because you want to splurge, you want to see the best. But because I go for a longer time, because I can also work from the distance.
right.
So I usually take an apartment instead
Mhm.
of staying in hotels. And when you take an apartment for a month, it's cheaper than, paying daily rate in a hotel.
Mhm.
So, but when I stay longer, I go to cheaper countries. Like this year, I went to Argentina. I stayed 2 months. I worked 2 or 3 weeks. The rest was vacation. Uh, in Argentina, they have their own problems, economical and political now,
Mhm.
which is an advantage for people like me who come with dollars.
Right,
So
yeah.
I got there in December. So I got for $1 American, I got 305 pesos. When I was
Right,
leaving, it was 350. Now it's almost 500 pesos. And we're talking
right,
about 5 months difference.
right.
So
Okay.
as bad as I feel for the people who have to live there,
Mhm.
for us, it's an advantage. So, you can go to a spa, you can eat at the
Yeah,
best restaurants. I
yeah.
cannot do that in Switzerland.
Well,
So the budget is very different for every country. Um, because Canada became very expensive in general, living
I think the
here,
whole of the
food,
world became very expensive,
yes,
isn't it,
but
after the COVID and what has gone
yeah,
around?
after COVID, so for me now, everything it seems, it's not, but it seems cheaper because you are usually comparing to the dollar value, the
Yeah,
at home, so
it's
to your
true.
own country. So the accommodation, I don't stay in hostels. I think I'm too
Uh-huh.
old for that.
Okay. So
Maybe, okay, let me rephrase.
you can
Too
try
sloppy
once.
to stay with other 10 people.
Right, okay.
At some point, at some age, you need your privacy. So I don't go to hostels, I don't
Yeah,
go to couch surfers. So
okay.
sometimes Airbnb, because Airbnb you can book a stay for a month and it allows you a better price. Even I
Mhm.
think a week is better than a daily rate. So that cuts down the cost. When you walk the city, you usually have one decent meal a day
Mhm.
and then some snacks on the way because you're walking. So one good meal is usually the biggest expense for the food. I rather go see Eiffel Tower for, I don't know, 30 euro, 40 euro, the
Mm,
elevator,
yeah, yeah.
then
I think it's
have
more
a
like,
fancy meal.
yeah, no, it's a I think it depends on the country, like you said, and how many days you plan. But
Yeah.
like you said, it's mixing with the people. Usually, what I do is I don't usually fix a budget, even if I have to take some extra money out of the
Yes.
other pots, but I will do it. Usually, I try 2 or 3 vacations a year, or maybe a little more, depending on where I want to go. So you talked about some. Uh, so how many languages do you know, Ivanka?
So I grew up with Czech and Slovak.
Uh-huh.
They are similar, but not the same. Under the communist regime, we had to learn Russian. So I still speak Russian, so it's 3.
Mhm.
Living in Quebec, in Montreal, it's English and French, so that's 5.
Uh-huh.
And because I go to Spain, Mexico, all these
Oh, Spanish.
Latin other, so I learned Spanish because I stay longer, so I improve the Spanish. So I speak 6 languages, which helps a lot. And
Yes,
then you
definitely.
have similar languages, like once you know Spanish and French, you understand Italian. You don't speak it, but you understand it.
Yeah,
When I
true.
speak Spanish in Brazil, they understand me. Like I
Yeah,
cannot speak Portuguese, but they understand me.
yeah, true.
Polish, Ukrainian, they're closer to Slovak language, so
Yeah.
it's a huge advantage. It doesn't help in Asia, but
Well, you need to have in Asia, it's not just one language. Even if you go to a country, there will be different dialects and different languages across the length of the country. In India, there are over like 100, 200 languages. So,
yeah.
so you have to be very, yeah, I do know like 3 languages, but yeah, I don't know a lot of South Indian languages in that regard. So
Mhm.
it's depending on the country and the vast size. So why did you leave Slovakia, and which year was it? I think you said 1989.
89, yes. I left like 6 months before the communism collapsed, before the Berlin Wall. Nobody knew it was gonna happen. When I left, I thought I was leaving forever because there was no way back. Had I gone
Right.
back, they would have put me in prison. So I came here as a refugee.
Uh-huh.
Um, 6 months later, the revolution happened, so we were allowed to go back. My parents were very happy because under the communist regime, I couldn't. So I thought I was leaving forever.
Right.
I
Hmm.
didn't even tell my parents that I was leaving because had somebody found out, they would have put me in prison. So I
So
told
how
my
did it
sister
feel
the
like?
day before. I told my sister the day before, so at least somebody knows.
Mhm.
So I left and then I called from Montreal. Yeah, I'm here. Please tell my mom and dad. So that was
How
not
did
the
you feel
happy.
like leaving a family is not an easy decision, I believe.
No, but when you're 24 years old, you don't really think about the consequences as
Hmm.
much as I would think now. Like I came here for a better life. As I said, the traveling was a big part of for my decision. Um, but there is a happy end to my story, so I'm happy that
Yeah.
I can go back anytime I want, and I do.